Hey, this is a message to all the light workers out there. I have been going through a difficult time with all this COVID situation. And I know that all of our paths have been different, and what has been happening in our personal lives and in our relationships has all been a different take on this whole situation to do with COVID, the vaccine, the lockdowns, and how that's been personally impacting everybody. I personally have been getting pulled into the non-vax side of the spectrum and into the corruption of the governments and, the larger, global agendas that are underneath the surface and all of that side of it, which makes me not want to be vaccinated. And before my children said that they were going to get vaccinated, my two oldest sons who are teenagers, before that, I was pretty neutral about it, to be honest. I didn't really mind. I was like, well, I'll get vaccinated if I feel I need to, or I just won't. It doesn't really matter. But when they came home and said, we've booked our vaccination, it became real. It became real for me, and I started to really question it, study it, think about it, look at all the different things that people were saying about it and so on. And it led me into fear, because I thought, there is no way I want my children to put that into their bodies. So, from the vaccinated point of view, you've got a different take on it. The vaccinated take maybe is something like, there is no way I'm getting COVID, and there's no way I want my family members to get COVID. So they're scared of getting COVID. So therefore the vaccination is a good, solution, and would rather do that. And they see the sanity in that rather than getting COVID. Whereas the non-vaccinated perspective is kind of the opposite, saying, well, COVID's been completely inflated. It's not even true, the statistics that are out there about it. It's not even that bad. The chances of dying are super slim, whereas all of these things are happening with the jab, all of these side effects, and goodness knows what the long-term ones are going to be. I'd rather just get COVID, than get the jab. So there's these different sides of the story. And then, of course, all the warring between the two thinking that you should be jabbed and thinking you're crazy because you've got jabbed, you're getting jabbed, and so all of these divisions within society, within our families, our close relationships, it's quite crazy. And I've been trying to get my head around all of that. So I spent some time away last weekend under beautiful Mount Cook, in the middle of blimmin' nowhere, with a couple of beautiful girlfriends, and I did some channeling for them, and I really tuned in about what the heck do we do right now. And when I got really, really, really calm and centered and clear, and I tuned in with this wise, benevolent person who kind of felt like Jesus, to be honest. I'm not saying it was, but let's just say, in that energy kind of realm, this ascended master, very enlightened being, came forward, and I saw it through his perspective. And he said, it actually makes no difference whatsoever whether you get vaccinated or not, or whether you get COVID or not. It actually doesn't matter. And the point is, are you being pulled into fear? Because I know I was, in the beginning I was neutral, and then I started getting sucked in, by all these stories. And, on the non-vaccinated side of the camp, there's a lot of fear. And on the vaccinated side, both are infused with fear of the vaccine, fear of what the government's doing, fear of getting COVID on the other side, fear of all these things, fear. So the divine perspective, or the transcendent perspective, is it actually doesn't matter. And If you're a light worker, as I am, and so many of you are, then it's much more important to step outside of all of the fear stories on either side and come back to knowing who you actually truly are at your essence. Because who you really are can never, ever be hurt, damaged, disrupted, defiled, distorted in any way. Not by COVID, not by the vaccination, not by government agendas, nothing. The government or the forces of darkness or whatever, want you to fall into fear, because then you are under their spell and corruptible and weak. Us light workers need to see through this. This is really important, and this is the message coming in from the higher dimensions. To all of you light workers who can hear it and receive it, you must remember who you are. This is all a big game. It's a big play. We've all put on our masks and we're all, we've got a role, we've got a character within this grand stage called Earth. But there is a reality. The true reality is above and beyond all of this stuff, all of the craziness going on here. None of it can actually affect who you really are. Who you really are is completely safe, totally secure, absolutely connected, and at one and in love right now. And we need to just keep coming back to that and coming back to that and coming back to that. Whatever ritual you've got that helps you tune in with that and connect with that. When you notice yourself getting sucked into the fear, that you can notice that, be aware of that, and come back to that more transcendent perspective. It's actually okay. You're going to be okay. All of your family is going to be okay. This is one big turbulent, storm going on here on Earth. And what my guidance was saying was that so many seeds are being planted at the moment. It's almost like everything's all shaken up, all of everyone's stuff is coming to the surface. And within that mass suffering is a really big opportunity for awakening. Awakenings are happening all over the place. And as light workers, we need to hold space for that. And we need to stay centered in who we really are and what's really true. Not getting caught up in the whirlwind ourselves and getting sucked into fear ourselves. The practice that we need to maintain is remaining calm and centered and knowing who we really are at our essence. And if we keep doing that, we're going to be guided. And this was the next part of the message that came through for all of us, was that when we remain centered in who we really are, when we remember that and sit in that, then we stay open as a portal for the higher dimensions to come through and use us to bring their light into the world, to awaken and enliven and evolve the human consciousness. If we fall into fear, we close our portal off. We're no longer available. It's like the higher dimensions are like, hello, we won't be letting them in. We've shut them out, shut them off. And they can't reach us. They can't come through for both our personal life and for the people around us and the mass consciousness at large. So it is our duty to stay connected, to stay empowered, and to allow this higher dimension in whatever shape or whatever form, whatever way that moves through us, to keep coming on to the planet. That is super, super important right now. And the way that we'll know what to do and what the best path of action is, if any, to take, is what are we called to do? The higher dimensions speak to us through that feeling of calling. It's not through a feeling of, I'm going to do that because I'm going to, look like an amazing person if I do that, and it'll be my accomplishment, and I'll be recognized. And, it's not about the ego propping itself up or trying to get recognition or make itself feel better. No, it's about stepping that outside of, putting that over there and feeling that deeper energy of the higher dimensions wanting to come through. And what does it, as we are partnering with that, what are we feeling called to do, to share, to help, to serve? What is it that we feel called to do? And as we keep staying centered and remembering who we are and following that calling, then we're helping to anchor the light onto this planet where it is absolutely needed. Remember, when we fall into fear, we fall into powerlessness. We fall into helplessness and weakness. That's not who we are. We are not weak, and we certainly are not powerless. Our minds are so very, very, very powerful, and that is why the forces of darkness, or the world agenda, or whatever you might call that, wants to shut us up, keep us down, keep us suppressed and eating junk food and not realizing what's really going on. Because as we unite together in our power, which is love, we're just not going to be corruptible. We're not going to need their protection because we are protected. We know who we are. That's the only protection we ever need. Because if you know who you really are, nothing can truly frighten you ever. So I want you to please take on this message. If you're a light worker and this is resonating with you, then take it on and build a practice, or enrich the practice that you already do, and keep staying centered in who you really are, because there is so much more to come on this planet. Start visioning what it is that you want this planet to look like. How do you want it to be here? What kind of world do you want to live in? As we start to bring these visions in, we're going to be creating that. Whatever we focus on, we experience. So if we're focusing on all this fear and all this disruption, we're just going to attract more of it, see it everywhere, and it will be our reality. Let's start to step aside and remember who we are and focus on what we want. We are so powerful together. I love you. Thank you for watching this. Have a beautiful day.